Chronicle Nation. Welcome back to our next chapter. Today we're going to talk to you guys out of the book of Genesis chapter 37. We're going to be talking about Joseph. And I'm calling this chapter the big picture. And I want to read to you Genesis chapter 37 verse 18 and 19, and then we'll kind of get into it. This is Joseph's brothers talking. They said, "Look, this is the dreamer coming. Come therefore, let us kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what becomes of his dreams." This is Joseph's brothers plotting to get rid of Joseph. Joseph was a 17-year-old handsome young man who was a favored son of his father. And Joseph's brothers knew that. And they devised a plan to get rid of him because he was a favored son. What added insult to injury was that Joseph had began to dream dreams. And in the dreams, Joseph dreamed that he was a reed standing tall and that all of his brothers were bowing to him. And they took that to mean that he was going to be over them, and that incensed them even more, and they became more angry and plotted to get rid of him. They plotted to throw him in the pit and kill him. But one of the brothers talked them out of killing him and just said, "Hey, I know a way how we can make some money. We'll just sell him." And that's what they did. Joseph's father Jacob grieved the loss of a son. His brothers got rid of him for a few shillings. Joseph was sold into slavery into Potiphar's house. And the Bible said that God was pleased with Joseph. Joseph gets into Potiphar's house and he works his butt off. You never read a scripture in Genesis where Joseph complained or was angry at his brothers. He continued to work his butt off to the point where Potiphar elevated Joseph to over all of his entire house and all of his affairs. But as it would turn out, the enemy was working to destroy Joseph. And Potiphar's wife saw Joseph as this beautiful and handsome young man and plotted to get him to have an affair with her. Joseph did the right thing and said no. He said, not because I'm afraid of making Potiphar mad. He said, because I don't want to displease my God. And in rejecting this woman and honoring God, the wife told a lie and said Joseph came on to her, and Potiphar threw Joseph in jail. And at the end of that scripture, it said that God was pleased with Joseph, and God was with Joseph. I named this session, Chronicle Nation, the big picture, because through all of this pain and anguish and wrong that this young man went through, the Bible made it clear to us that God was with Joseph. I want to tell you something, that this is hard for me, Chronicle Nation, because I don't like going through difficult stuff. I don't like going through hard things and harsh things. But this story makes me realize that God uses them to move us, to change us, to bless us, to get us in the place where his plan and his purpose is fulfilled. And sometimes those things that God asks us to do are hard. You can look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and he said, "Father, if it be thy will, suffer this cup to pass before me," because even Jesus struggled at the will of the Father. I imagine this was hard for Joseph to go through all of this pain, all of this heartache, and yet it was a part of God's plan. I remember a story in my life. I'm a nurse by trade and I worked at a hospital in Ohio, and I worked under a nurse manager that just didn't feel like he cared for me. And I didn't understand that. I was losing my mother at the time and going through some life challenges at the time. And it just seemed no matter what I did, I couldn't get or gain the favor of this nurse manager. And one day after all of the turmoil, I just decided I wanted a change of location. And God brought me all the way across the country. And now I can look back on it being in 7 years and realizing that God did not let me rest in a place. And the turmoil and the pain that I went through with that nurse manager and in that environment that was so difficult for me at the time, I realize now that it was God's plan. That God was using it to move me and push me in a direction so that I could fulfill my purpose. And Chronicle Nation, I'm telling you, he's doing that same thing for you. See, Chronicle Nation, you and I see through the glass dimly, but God sees the big picture. You and I see the puzzle, the piece. God sees the puzzle. You and I just see one frame. God sees the entire movie. You and I only know one page, but God has read the entire book. He knows what he has planned for you. And I want to tell you that sometimes those things are going to be difficult things. Sometimes they're going to be harsh things, hard things, things that make us cry tears. But God has a plan for you. And he tells us that in Romans 8:28. And I love this scripture. He says, and we know that all things work together for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Psalms 37:23 through 24 tells us that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not utterly be cast down, for the Lord holds him in his hand. In Zephaniah 10:8, for I will redeem them, and they shall increase as they once increased. God is going to use like he did with Joseph, who throughout all Joseph went through, he became the second in command in Egypt. He saved his father and his brothers and his family from poverty because of what he went through. But I'm sure that it was a struggle for him. But it was all a part of God's plan. So Chronicle Nation, I don't know what you're going through today. I don't know what your struggle is today. I know our country is in the midst of a great turmoil and a great struggle, but I'm telling you that God has a plan. He has a plan for you. He has a plan for me. And he has a plan for our nation. God bless you, Chronicle Nation. Until next time.